I'll never forget that, Dave, because I quite literally, to be honest, I had traded the last 4 years of being a father, being a husband, being present with this idea that if I make enough, save enough, I'll buy my life back and I'll fix it then. And here I am facing a stark reality that I might lose everything I really care about.
Today's guest went from a high school dropout to a college grad in 2 years, then to climbing the corporate ladder, and then watched almost everything he'd built get wiped out in 2008. His net worth crashed from over $100,000 down to 28, and it was sitting in a hospital room next to his son who was recovering from open heart surgery that Ryan D. Lee had the realization that changed everything. Money isn't net worth. Money is time. And he'd been trading his life for a one day that might never come. This is one of my favorite conversations we've done. Stick around to the end because I've got a giveaway for the first 5 of you who email in. Let's get into it. All right, Ryan D. Lee, welcome to Beyond Fulfillment.
I tell you what, I am beyond fulfilled to be here, Dave. This is awesome. Let's go.
Yes, let's go. All right, Ryan. So you've been an entrepreneur for quite some time now, and you are the creator of the Passive Income Machine. But you had quite a harrowing start to your entrepreneurial journey, and you faced some incredible difficulty early on, which really became the catalyst for this amazing company that you've built. So if you could just, to set the stage for our listeners, talk about your backstory and how you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, I think I've always had the entrepreneur blood inside of me. I mean, I've got all of those kid entrepreneur stories, selling stuff on the streets and making money and hustling and doing all that stuff. But I'll never forget, I dropped out of high school. I didn't really love school. And I got my life kind of back together around the age of 23. And it was really fascinating for me as I look back on my life and back on my journey. All of the social conditioning for me when I was like, oh, I'm going to be a responsible person instead of just a crappy high school dropout. All that social conditioning kicked in. And I remember I went and I got my GED. And then I'm like, the only reason I got a GED is so I could go to college because that's what productive human beings do, apparently. And I remember I got into college and I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to be here. But I knew I needed a degree. And so I ran through 4 years of college in 2. And again, the goal was just to give me the piece of paper so I can get on with my life. And I remember when I graduated college, I was now married. And that was the reason I went to college. I found my wife in college, been married now for 22 years. And I remember when I got that degree, I got my first professional job. We had to move from my home state of Utah, which I love Utah. I love the mountains. I'm an outdoors guy. We had to move to Tucson, Arizona. And I remember I got my first paycheck, okay? And this was back in the day when they gave you a paycheck. And I saved it. I didn't open it immediately. I saved the paycheck, put it in my back pocket, and it was going to be kind of like this symbolism. High school dropout, turned college grad, professional job, moves to a new state, all the things. And I remember I went to the Bank of America, I rip open the check, I pull the check out, and I was confused. I mean, after taxes, insurance, moving expenses, I was making less money as a college grad than I was as a side hustler to pay my way through college. And I remember, I had this voice in the back of my head. It started to whisper at me and it said, you should just quit now. But now here I am married. I've got a kid on the way. And, I'm thinking to myself, I can't do that, right? I can't just quit. I still had this idea that being an entrepreneur was risky, right? And so I thought, okay, look, I'm going to take all of my entrepreneurial tendencies and I'm going to be an intrapreneur. I'm going to create the most value, solve the most problems, do whatever I got to do. And I'm going to take this teeny, crappy little paycheck and I'm going to blow it up, right? And so I started climbing the corporate ladder. And, in the beginning, yeah, it was cool. It was exciting, bigger salary, more bonuses, bigger geography, more territory. But looking back, every promotion that I took, it came with a trade-off, right? And I started making those trade-offs without even analyzing the cost. More time away from my family, more stress, more nights and weekends. I found myself living in a different state than my family a couple of times in my corporate career because I was just on the road so much. And I developed a new goal, okay? As I'm climbing the corporate ladder, I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids now. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm just gonna make a bunch of money, I'm gonna save a bunch of money, and I'm gonna retire early. I'm gonna buy my life back. And I thought I could do that by my 50s. That was kind of my goal back in the day. And so I just started playing that game, right? I'll never forget in 2007, my net worth, I didn't know any other way to measure it back then, but my net worth crested $100,000. Now, that doesn't seem like much when we talk about it today, especially with today's numbers. But for me, it kind of felt like maybe this thing's working. Maybe one day I will retire early and I'll be, major. I can buy my life back. And I remember that was 2007. And then in 2008, everything turned upside down, right? And in 2008, all of the net worth that I had built, because now I have a 401k, I have a brokerage account, I'm trading some options and trying to, accelerate my financial plan a little bit. In 2008, everything, and I mean everything, fell like a rock, right? And my net worth went from over 100 down to 28. And I remember, Dave, that was interesting for me because when that happened, at first I thought I did something wrong, and I was a little bit ashamed about it. But as I started opening up my eyes and looking around me, I realized everybody lost money. And the two awakenings I had in 2008 was as follows. Number one, I was modeling my life after people in my corporate career, and I was losing every piece of my life that I cared about along the way. And I remember I was looking at these people 20, 30 years ahead of me, and these were people that were on their second, third, fourth marriage, divorced, whatever. Most of them overweight, unhealthy. They just weren't living the life I wanted. Yeah, they were making good money, but I watched their dreams of retirement melt in front of their face. And I thought to myself, holy crap, I'm doing the same thing they're doing, except I was expecting a different outcome. Then number two, what really woke me up was when I say I almost lost my family, my oldest son, he was born with a heart defect. And I knew about it, and I'm an optimist, and the doctors told us that he might grow out of that. And I remember, we would take him to checkups, and I was hyper involved in those checkups in the beginning, but over time I thought he's just getting better. And I remember shortly after 2008, I got a call from my wife. Now, I lived in Indianapolis at the time, and my family lived back in Texas. Again, geography, territories, moving. It just was the life I was living at that time. And my wife, she told me, she's like, hey, I'm taking Doug in for an emergency open heart surgery. The holes in his heart had expanded. He was now pumping blood out of his heart into his lungs, and he was basically drowning. And man, I'll never forget that, Dave, because I quite literally, to be honest, I had traded the last 4 years of being a father, being a husband, being present, with this idea that if I make enough, save enough, I'll buy my life back and I'll fix it then. And here I am facing a stark reality that I might lose everything I really care about. And I remember I came back home and I sat in the hospital with my son over those next couple of weeks. And number one, I was grateful that I was given a second chance to be his father. And number two, I committed that I had to figure out the game of money. I was done trading my life, hoping for one day. And I'm grateful for that hospital experience for me because it gave me an opportunity to reset my priorities and really understand that money is a tool. And I had been lazy with that tool. I had been hoping that things that I didn't control could give me the life that I wanted. And every other area of my life, I had success. I was winning. I was taking control in. But I was letting money control me. And so that changed everything for me. And that's kind of where my entrepreneurial journey began, because it began with my decision to take over my money.
Okay. Wow. So appreciate all that context. Just to key in on a few things. So you clearly were ambitious, right? And just the fact that you didn't like school. So you drop out of high school and then somehow you realize you need to go to college. That was your mindset. So you get your degree within 2 years. You get a 4-year degree after dropping out in 2 years. Like what motivated you? Did you just take like double the classes and just
Dude,
breeze through it all?
I don't know how they let me do it, man. I had, in my senior year, I took 2 classes at the exact same time. And they were both on, Tuesdays and Thursdays at the exact same time. And I would just rotate which class I went to which day. And again, I didn't care about any of it. I was just trying to pass, to check the box, to get the degree, to say, yeah, I did it, right? Now what, right? My objective just was I wanted to win in life. And I wasn't winning. I wish I could say I dropped out of high school to be like Steve Jobs, right? And I was in my garage building the next evolutionary technology. I was being a bum, right? I was just being I didn't like school, so be a bum, right? And I decided to get my life back on course at 23, and it just all kicked in to say, you go to school if you want to be a good citizen.
I think you realize all the really important lessons, right? You're not going to learn in the classroom. It's going to be out there
Totally.
doing, and all this the stuff you have to deal with, whether in business or whatever type of business you're in. So you get that degree, you get the corporate job, and then you had another epiphany when you open your first paycheck, right? And you see you see the taxes, the 401k and everything else. And like you said, that voice starts whispering. And again, right, you're trying to win in life. You're so motivated. You're going above and beyond, but yet you've got this social conditioning where you're kind of like on this path where they steer everyone towards, where you had that realization where you almost lost your son, right? And in the retirement. How long were you in that corporate career before all that happened?
4 years. Yeah, I graduated in 2004, and I was in it for 4 years when all of that kind of culminated in 2008 for me.
Okay. All right. So the financial crash happens. Even at that time, you're making progress, right? And obviously the market was going up and you're doing all the things you're supposed to do. Your net worth gets almost completely wiped out. And you have this epiphany like you need to control money and not let money control you.
That's exactly right. I'll never forget, man. I was sitting in the hospital, and I felt like as I kind of did an analysis of what I had traded my previous 4 years for, because I was not a present father to my son. And I kept telling myself, I'll just be better when I have enough money. And that's such a dangerous game. And everyone plays, especially entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs play that game probably worse than anyone. And I remember sitting there facing the possibility that I was about to lose the son that I was trading my life for, to say one day I'll buy that time back. I might not have the time to buy back anymore. And I remember I had the first realization that money is time. That's really all it is. Every dollar that you have, every dollar that I have, every number in our brokerage accounts or wherever you're storing your capital, it represents time that you've traded. And your objective, my objective when it comes to investing, is to take the dollars that we have and buy our time back. That's all it is. And that opened up my mind, because in 2008, when everything crashed to the ground, I felt like I had just wasted or lost 4 years of my life. And I committed and vowed that would never happen again. And that's a exciting commitment, but it's also kind of a scary commitment, because I had no idea what to do about that. I mean, the way we've been taught about money is to be dependent, right? We make money, but then we're told we're not smart enough, we're not capable enough. Go hire financial advisors and CPAs and let all of those people handle your money for you. And you just hope that they do a good job for you. And one day you have enough money to buy your life back. And for the first time ever, sitting in the hospital room with zero financial education, I made a commitment to take control over my money so I could take control over my life.
Quick word from today's partner, NordVPN. Building a business means working from anywhere: coffee shops, airports, hotel Wi Fi. NordVPN encrypts your connection and protects your data in over 100 countries, all with one tap. Grab the link in the show notes for a big discount and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Now back to the show. Okay, so you have this epiphany. That moment happens. You make that decision. What happens next? How do you start?
Yeah, man. So this is how I've always started. Behind me, I've got a bookshelf, and it's just so chock full. And I've got an Audible account now because I listen more than I physically read, unfortunately, today. But I started looking, right? And I think here's the crazy part about life, and this doesn't just revolve around money, but our perspective, our beliefs, really, it defines the world that we see. And up to that point, I believed I wasn't good with money. I believed that you give your money to Wall Street, you max fund a 401k, and you wait. I had the evidence that that wasn't working for other people, and that was the path that I was on. So I started changing my perspective. And I started asking, well, how do the wealthy do it? And when your perspective changes, the world that you see changes. And I'll never forget, I read this book in the hospital, right? Because I was there for 2 weeks with my son while he was recovering from this surgery. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that is the gateway drug for a lot of people that get into alternative finance. And in that book, it confirmed these suspicions that I had, that maybe everything that I know about money isn't not just right, it's actually wrong. And if it's wrong, then the opposite might actually be true. And so it opened me up so much to say, holy crap, I'm measuring my success based on my net worth. Who cares? How much income do my assets deliver? I'm thinking that I have to work harder to get ahead. And yes, I'm not afraid of hard work and I like working hard, but I have to work smarter. And so all of these different ideas started coming in, but I didn't know how to apply it. And so after the hospital, I'm back up in Indianapolis. This is where I live. This is where I work. I'm trying to figure out how to like rectify my life now. And I came across another book. And this book was written by Robert Allen. Many people don't know Robert Allen, but he's kind of the OG in the real estate space. And he had a book, and it was called Creating Wealth. And I came across his book, and it wasn't the title of his book that caught my attention. It was the subtitle. And the subtitle of Robert Allen's book was Follow Allen's 7 Principles, and You Could Retire in 10 Years. And I thought to myself, I can do anything for 10 years, like literally. And that's what the heck? What are his 7 principles? And I remember I picked up his book, and in chapter 4, he got to the point of how you do it. And it was so simple. It was so easy that I thought, A, it must be a joke, or B, if it's this simple, I know I can do it. And his goal was just buy 2 single family homes a year for 10 years. And in year 11, you have enough assets, enough cash flow, enough value to replace your income. And being the overachiever that I am, over the next 4 years, I bought 17 homes in 4 years. And I'll never forget the day I used to sell medical devices, medical equipment. Over those next 4 years, I stopped traveling. I moved to Denver, and I took over just the Denver territory. I was not going to go on the road. I was not going to trade my life. I excelled as much as I could in my sales career to make as much money as I could. I started understanding the tax game, so I paid less in taxes. And then I started taking all of that money and putting it into cash flowing, appreciating, leverage-based assets, single-family homes. And 4 years after that, I had 17 properties. And I remember one day my boss, Rob, walked in. And Rob, he's the type of dude, he never shows up unless there's a problem. So I knew, A, I'm getting fired, or B, there's a problem. What is it, And companies, they were still kind of tightening their belts 4 years after 2008. And I remember Rob walked in, he sat me down, and he proceeded to tell me that I'm getting a promotion. And the promotion, and I knew exactly what it was because I had heard kind of the scuttlebutt, they had fired 3 other managers, and I'm now back on the road. He wanted me to take over 4 more states, travel again, do all of these things. And I remember as he was talking, I had a Charlie Brown moment. Remember back in Charlie Brown when the mom would talk, it sounded like wah, wah, wah. Like Rob's voice kind of faded out, and it was just wah, wah, wah in the background because in my mind, I was adding up my cash flow over and over and over and over again. And the first property, I'm like, okay, that property, that could pay for my car. Those 3 properties, that could pay for my mortgage. Those 4 properties, that puts food on my table. And I remember as I was adding this up, I realized I could cover my basic living expenses. Now, I'm not financially free in the sense that I could travel to Europe and drive Lamborghinis and all of those things, but my basic living expenses were covered. And I remember after a few minutes, Rob's like, are you ready to take this promotion? And I remember I looked up at him and I said, I quit. And I'll never forget that, man, because as soon as that came out of my mouth, I wanted to reach out and grab that statement and like shove it back. I didn't mean to quit that day. But the second after I got over the shock of I just quit, like this sense of relief and freedom overwhelmed me. It came over me and I was like, oh my gosh, I am free. And I remember he tried to talk me back in and said he would pay me more money. And I'm like, I quit, I'm done. And I remember I had to walk out of that office and I had to call my wife, right? And my wife is home raising our son who just, recovers from heart surgery and all of this. And, I called her up and I was like, honey, I just quit. And there's this little awkward silence on the other end. And I thought she's going to be pissed. And she's like, Ryan, it's about damn time. And that started everything for me. I walked away from that career because I was in pain. I didn't walk away to say I want to help other people, but I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And over the next couple of months, I had people contacting me. In fact, one of the doctors I used to sell medical equipment to me called me up and he was in his 50s. He's like, dude, I heard you just quit. How did you do it? And can you show me too? And that just started this snowball. I started helping person after person after person take control over their money, measure their success based on cash flow, not net worth, optimize the tax code, and get extraordinary results in a short period of time. And that's now what I do today professionally. I've been doing it now for over 14 years. I've been working with clients for years. We have thousands of case studies, and it's the most fulfilling work I've ever done because I feel like I'm helping people use money as a tool to build and live a life that matters. Not one day, not until they're 65, but right now. And that's the game I play.
Hey, let me tell you about Max Capital Hub. If you're an entrepreneur trying to get funding, but your credit's holding you back, these are the people to call. They do business loans, business funding, and they'll actually help you clean up your credit so you qualify for more. They're not just handing you paperwork, their team builds an actual strategy around your business. So if you've been stuck or the bank has told you no, give Max Capital Hub a call or book a free consultation at maxcapitalhub.com. Tell them I sent you. Okay, wow. So you have this realization you're going to take control of your money, not let it control you. Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of gets you thinking differently. And then you come across the Robert Allen book. And like you said, the subtitle hooked you. And when you got to that system, it was so simple. You followed it and you overachieved and you accelerated it. So you bought 17 homes in 4 years, which is like double the pace that he sets. And then as you're in this corporate job, not fulfilled, but doing it for the money and continuing to save and acquire these homes, they try to give you a promotion, which is really just not the life you want. And you have that epiphany moment and you quit. And you're in a position where you can quit, right? Because you have these cash flowing assets. And then from there, that, I guess, unintentionally, you become an entrepreneur because as word gets out, people are so impressed with what you did. They ask you to help them do the same thing. And that, in essence, starts your company where you teach other people this system in terms of developing cash flowing assets, maximizing the tax code, and accelerating their ability to retire just by doing things differently.
Dude, that's 100% it, man. 100% it. And there's so many little heroes' journeys, epiphanies, learning, losses, all the things that entrepreneurs go through to go from that to where I am today. But that's essentially the story, man. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for my mentors. I'm grateful for the people who wrote books, who helped me see it. I've hired a lot of coaches over the years. And yeah, the objective for me today in our business is to retire in 10 years or less. Obviously, it's the same hook that got me. That's how we measure success. We work with driven individuals, whether you're an entrepreneur or a high earning professional, you have to be driven. If you're comfortable being dependent on your job, on taxes, on markets, on inflation, we're not for you. If you want to be independent, and in many areas of your life you are independent, but not with your money, man, we will empower you in a way where you have real life principles applied directly to money, and you build a system that will generate cash flow in excess of your expenses in a passive way. Because even though I say retire in 10 years or less, I only do that to get people's attention because they understand that word. I don't believe in the idea of retirement. I believe money is a tool, and once you can cross over this threshold where you're not making the majority of your decisions based on money, then you can step into the opportunity of true fulfillment, which is using your unique God-given talents, oftentimes in the service of other people. And sometimes there's money associated with that, sometimes there's not. But you're making decisions because you're driven to maximize the quality of your life by using your God-given abilities.
And that's a whole other conversation, but let's just touch on that as well about retirement, because actually I had someone on here where her whole business now is debunking the myth of retirement. She's saying, look, it's a social construct,
Totally.
and right, like you see it too, where people are in such a hurry to retire because they're not doing work that they enjoy, that fulfills them. They don't really have a mission and a purpose with their work that's bringing them true fulfillment. So, and entrepreneurs often are very different than that, where they love to work, they love what they do, their business it means a lot to them. Your passive income covers your living expenses so now you can basically work because you want to, not because you have to. I guess that would be your business's definition of retirement.
Absolutely. You can pick up meaningful projects. You can take on endeavors in your business that don't immediately drive profit immediately, so you can build long-term enterprise value. I mean, there's things that I'm doing in my business right now where I couldn't do if I was financially free. Like I couldn't do if I had to generate a paycheck to pay for my life today. And I'm doing it to drive enterprise value long term in a business that I really care about. And so I believe money's greatest intrinsic value, if you just think of the concept of money, if money is something that we trade our life for, then the first purpose of money is to buy your life back. Once you've bought it back, what the heck? What do you want your life to mean? So money's greatest intrinsic value is to give you more options in your life and more control over your time. And once you understand that, the entire game of investing changes.
If your business is an e-commerce brand, this message is for you. Logistics can make or break you. If you're tired of being just a number to those big box 3PLs, you need to check out our team at Easy DC 3PL. We're a different kind of partner, built specifically for growing brands that ship between 1,000 and 10,000 orders per month. We offer warehousing, fulfillment, and transportation with a focus on personalized service and flexibility. Our central Kentucky location gives you nationwide reach, turning logistics into a competitive advantage. So if you're ready to partner with a 3PL that actually gets your brand, visit easydc3pl.com. Okay. All right. So let's talk about your company, which is the passive income machine, right? So this started because people were reaching out to you and saying, can you help me do the same thing you did? So talk about the process of actually turning that actually into a real tangible company that's helped so many people over these last 14 years.
Yeah, man. This is my favorite part about this. We build everything we do. We build inside of a customized individual game plan to where we sit down with you. We understand. We for the first time define what financial freedom means, how much income you actually need to generate to create the life that you have today and the life that you ultimately want. We get clear on the assets that you have today, your income, your savings, your tax liability, where your money's going. And then we show you two worlds. It's really that simple, right? If you stay on the Wall Street path, if you stay on what I call the dependency path, where you, as a business owner, you control your income to a certain extent by the business and the amount of money that you make, but then you hand your money over to everyone else and hope that one day they can free you from your business, not maybe necessarily because you want it, but you absolutely need it. You're a better business owner when you're free versus trapped by your business. So in the dependency economy, you just kind of cross your fingers and hope that all the things out of your control work somehow in your favor. And almost anyone that operates in that realm where, they're storing money in Bitcoin, or, they've got money in the market, or they've got a bunch of different assets but no real plan, they feel dependent and they kind of shrink back into their business because it's the only thing that they have some semblance of control over. So my goal is really specific. It's ownership. There is such a thing called the ownership economy, and we take ownership over our money, we take ownership over our investments, and we take ownership over our results. And in the ownership economy, the real caveat, the real change that we make is I don't care what your net worth is, and you shouldn't either. It's just a public opinion. What I care about and what you should care about is how much income do your assets deliver month over month, year over year? How effective is that income with inflation? Does it rise with inflation? What's your tax rate on that income? Is it taxable, tax deferred, or tax free? And how much control or predictability do you have over it? Once we can play a game around that, the range of opportunities, the range of investments, it narrows down to such a small spectrum that it becomes so easy to build a system to make money, to keep it, to turn it into cash flow and repeat the process.
If you're still trying to hire locally for every role on your team, you're leaving serious money on the table. Ocean's Talent places AI fluent executive operators. We're talking finance, marketing, operations, EAs, fully vetted, full-time, and dedicated to your business. These aren't freelancers or shared resources. They're U.S. caliber talent at a fraction of the cost, backed by a 3-month guarantee. And right now, Beyond Fulfillment listeners get $1,000 off their first hire. Go to oceanstalent.com/Dave to claim it. And Ryan, like just looking back on this whole journey, right? Where, you've got these entrepreneurial tendencies early on, you go off course, you dropped out of school, then you came back and you graduate college in 2 years. You went through all that corporate drama and lost almost everything in the financial crash, scares with your family, and then you get on this path with the alternate investments. You retire early, you build a company unintentionally that's helped so many people, and now you're just ultra fulfilled doing work that you love and impacting so many lives. Like looking back at the whole journey, what's been the best part of it for you?
Um, that's such a good question. Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I think the best part about it, I'll never forget the very first person I worked with. His name is Dr. Wes Brown. And when I sat down with Dr. Wes Brown, I asked him the things that probably no financial advisor asks you, right? And it was the things that, I was coming off of an emotional experience with my family, and so I had a very warped view around money. And so I asked him two questions because he came in, he sat down with me at my kitchen table, and he thought I was going to give him the secret investment or the secret formula or the best rate of return. And all of those things are important, but they're not nearly as important as this. And I asked him this first question. I said, Wes, what do you want? And you think that's an easy question to answer. And you might have a very surface level answer, but until you really know what you want. Like, I want more control. I want to work less hours. I want to be less stressed. Well, why do you want that? Why? Until you get down to the core of what you want. Once you know what you want mentally and you have a very clear mental image of that thing, and then you know the second answer to the second question, well, why do you want that? Because we're marketed to from the world to want a lot of things that don't necessarily provide fulfillment, the very essence of your show. It's a way to satiate you and feel like you're enjoying the journey of being trapped by money and time. But when you really get clear on what you want and why you want it, the heart and the mind are connected. Now you understand what money is for. And most people never talk about that. It's this idea of an elusive, one day when I have enough money, I'll figure my life out. This is what society hands us. And most people get to the end of their life, and I guarantee you, they regret working the extra hours, not spending the time with their kids. They regret all of the things that they traded for more or less money. And it's the thing that they can never get back. And so our objective inside of our community is, I believe financial freedom, it's not a destination like one day or an age, it's a lifestyle. And when you understand that, money's greatest ability is to A, buy you more time and options, and then align your money with your unique core values, with your unique goals and desires, with your unique ambitions. And that now gives money purpose. And so for me, the greatest high for me over these years has been watching the people that I've been able to work with transcend the quality of their life out of what they were handed by society and build the life that they want to live. I've seen many of them write books. I've seen many of them quit jobs. I've seen many of them sell their businesses. I've seen many of them go on missions. I've seen so much transformation in people, not because we gave them better investments, even though we did, but because we helped them get clear on what those investments are really for. They're meant to help you build and live a life that matters.
Can find you online.
Well, Dave, I appreciate you, my man. I'll kind of bring this whole story full circle. About 3 years ago, I invited my two mentors to an event. Now, I had never met these two individuals, but we had now built a community. We had all these people, all these results. And this was during COVID, and I was a little bit scared to do it, but I reached out and I found a way to get a hold of Robert Kiyosaki, and I reached out and I found a way to get a hold of Robert Allen. And I invited both of these two people to one of my events, and I stood them up on stage, and I gave both of them a Lifetime Achievement Award. And it was really just meant to acknowledge them for the work that they had done, the impact it had made on my life, and through them, the impact I was able to make on so many other people's lives. And I remember they both stood on stage, and Robert Allen specifically was weeping. He was weeping, and he took the microphone, and he said, you know what? I've written several books, New York Times bestseller over and over and over again, but it's a very isolated place. I sit behind a computer screen and I type words, and I have no idea who's receiving them. I have no idea what impact these words are making. And to stand here and to see all of you people in the audience, It is so fulfilling for me to see this, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to stand in front of you. And it was so awesome. And then after that, we struck up a friendship. And both of these men are at the tail end of their lives right now. They're both in their 80s. And anyway, a couple of years ago, we decided to write a book together to codify everything that I had built inside of this system. Learning primarily some of the principles that they taught me, and I added a lot of elements to this system after having worked with so many people. And we released the book last year. It's called Retire in 10 Years or Less. And that's the best way to find out everything we do. We give away a free audio copy. We give away a free digital course with Kiyosaki and Robert Allen in it. So go to Retire in 10, the number 10, retireintenyears.com. And that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Before we wrap, I've got something for you listening right now. Ryan and I want to put a physical signed copy of his book, Retire in 10 Years, in the hands of 5 of you. Here's how it works. The first 5 people who email me their biggest takeaway from this episode get a copy sent to them on us. Just tell me the one thing that hit you the hardest, the thing you're actually going to do something with. First 5 emails win. The address is in the show notes.
If you want to take any control over your money, that's the game.
Okay, and we'll link that in the show notes for everyone. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing all this incredible wisdom from your journey with our listeners. We greatly appreciate it.
Dave, it's an honor.